Hey, it's Friday. Let's have a cocktail with Anna Glowinski.
I'm joined now by one of my favourite guests ever. It's a welcome back to the author of How to Sound Smart at Parties, an evening of fun facts and curious conversations and random facts. Now, the reason I think I love talking to Mr. Michael McBride so much is because this show as well is just all about tidbits and bits of information, and it's so fascinating. And I love speaking to someone who's actually made their career out of it. Michael, or Mr. Ideas Soup, welcome back.
Hey, Anna, how's it going? It's great to be back.
Yeah, and I'm really sorry if I kept you waiting just there. I know I've got you on a little bit late. I went off on a discussion about the relevance of the royal family, especially in the UK.
Very controversial topic. I lived in London for 3 years, and I know that's very controversial over there. So I'm not sure if I'm going to touch that hot potato.
Oh, no, I really wanted to, because it is a question, you know, I was a bit like, it's not a very original question talking about the relevance of the royal family, because it's talked about so much. But, you know, how people feel about it is constantly evolving as society is changing. So it gets really gritty. Please give us an opinion.
You know,
especially from an outsider point of view.
Totally. Of course, I have American roots, right? I'm all about overthrowing the monarchy, personally. But I also do understand they do create a sense of cohesion, right? And a sense of shared national identity outside of politics. So at a time when people are very, very politically divided, having what are essentially influencers, right? Let's not kid ourselves. The royal family are fancy influencers, more or less, these days. I do understand the argument that, like, they, you know, help build national identity and all that. However, if that comes at the expense of, I know they don't take taxpayer money directly, but they own public lands, and it's all very complex. But I understand there's some drain on the system, theoretically, potentially. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a complex issue, and I totally understand folks that come down either side of it. I lean, you know. I think democracy is good generally, and like that, I'm very pro democracy. Which
let's just sum it up in that little soundbite: democracy equals good. So the last time we spoke, we were talking about the launch of your book. If you can just give us a little quick recap about that book and how it's going so far. What's been the feedback to it?
Yeah, it's going amazing. The response has been so much better than I ever expected. The book is called How to Sound Smart at Parties, and it's basically these like 7 eccentric experts at a dinner party just discussing fun stuff. And so it's, you know, ostensibly a book of fun facts, but it's way more than that because it has this like dinner party element. I just want to imitate the feeling of like being up at, you know, 2 a.m. with a friend, drinking a glass of wine and talking about interesting stuff. And it's gotten an amazing response. Yeah, it's illustrated, super easy to read. The best response I've gotten from people is people that say, I don't usually read. I don't like reading very much, and I couldn't put the book down, because that was very intentional. My background is social media. I first, you know, blew up on TikTok, and I understand that people's attention spans are short. And so I wanted to create a book that was like for people that didn't like reading, or a book that almost like you couldn't help but read. And so, yeah, How to Sound Smart at Parties essentially is like a book that kind of recreates the dopamine of social media, which, you know, is something we could all probably use to get off our phones a little more these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how healthy that sounds. Like, yeah, let's feed into the fact that nobody can concentrate anymore. But it sounds like that you know, hit the nail on the head.
Spoonful of sugar, right? Spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. It's like, I think, you know, yeah, I think a book over a phone is always going to be good any day of the week, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Relatively family friendly, you know? So I've heard a lot of folks that they love, you know, seeing their 12, 13-year-old reading a book instead of picking up the phone. So that like those kind of, you know, that kind of feedback makes me just exhilarated to hear.
And
right?
how's the process different of writing a book as opposed to putting fun facts on social media?
Putting fun facts on social media is like, you know, very fun and exciting, and writing a book is like the worst thing I've ever done. So it took me 2 years to write this book. 2 years. It's with Penguin Random House, and we started working together in a year, and I submitted a manuscript, and they were like, this is good, but it's not quite there. And we kind of decided to fully start over and basically rewrite it from scratch. And so it's been a labor of love. Anyone out there who wants to be an author, don't run away. It's the hardest, worst thing ever. But I'm really proud of what I've made. Will I write another book? I'm not so sure.
So you're still going full steam ahead on social media, coming up with more wonderful curiosities. What have you been working on since we last spoke?
There's been a few things. I'm working on a YouTube video right now. That's an interesting fact that I think folks listening will like, that I discovered that I'm so deeply fascinated by, which is there is a gravity hole in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Okay,
what does that even mean?
So Earth's gravity is not consistent across the surface for various reasons, right? Number one, Earth is not a perfect sphere. There are, indents. And also different parts of Earth's crust are different densities, right? And so like the specific kind of, mass that's pulling on it directionally is a little bit different. And so in 1946, it's kind of crazy we can measure this, this long ago. In 1946, this guy is sailing across the Indian Ocean, taking some measurements, and he's like, there must be something wrong with my instruments showing the gravity as really low here. And we double and triple checked. And sure enough, there's a spot just south of India where gravity is, significantly lower than the rest of the world. They call it a gravity hole, which is like the most sci-fi sounding term I've ever heard in my entire life. And so I've just been doing a deep dive on that. Essentially, actually, we're still kind of theorizing it. We only really started to come to some conclusions in 2023 when we could do computer modeling. But essentially, they think it's like when India smashed into Asia 70 million years ago, right? Formed the Himalayas. That's why there's giant mountains there, because India smashed in very forcefully. And basically behind it, the kind of magma that filled in wasn't as dense. And so it created this bizarre like gravity hole. But that's my most recent video that I've been sort of obsessed with.
What would a gravity hole mean for people who are traveling through that area? If you're flying or if you're in a boat, does it mean that you're going to start floating around like an astronaut?
No, I wish, right? And suddenly do moon jumps on the deck of the cruise ship. It's more so just like it would affect very, very sensitive instruments. And it's really more of a scientific curiosity. It wouldn't have too much impact on anyone except for the most specific scientific instruments there.
I guess that if it did have such a dramatic impact, we'd have heard about it by now.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's 0.005%, which doesn't sound like much, but it's kind of a lot as well. It's both like a very small amount, but also very significant.
I love that. And what about, have you got anything else that you're working on coming up? Why should people tune into your channels? Can you give us some little teasers?
Yeah, totally. Another good fun fact that I think I'm going to do a video on soon is ninjas didn't wear black. Okay, so you think of a ninja, right? You think of a ninja dressed in all black, right? But that doesn't make sense.
Oh, I thought green, because I was thinking turtles.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all teenagers and they love pizza, right? It's so ninjas didn't wear black, right? Now, when you think about it, it makes sense because ninjas were, essentially like spies almost, right? They were assassins. They needed to blend in. And if you walked into a town and you saw a guy, wearing all black and his face coat, you'd be like, who the hell is that guy, right? So ninjas dress to blend in with the local populace or local camouflage or this or that. However, when Japan started putting ninjas on stage in performances, they wanted to show that they were, blending in with the background. And how do you blend in on stage? By wearing all black. The same reason stagehands wear all black in modern theater, right? And so the ninjas would be in all black on these performances. And then you go, oh, of course, ninjas wear all black.
Well, that's a really interesting. They're all really interesting, to be fair. And so it's a video that you're working on. Do you get how visual is this? We're here speaking on radio. Like, I can actually see you, but nobody else can. And so we're doing it all audio. Obviously what you do is very visual. What's that like?
I try to source historical footage as much as I can. The channel is Idea Soup, like a soup of ideas. And I try to source historical footage as much as I can. I use a lot of animations where I can. So it's definitely very visual. I try not to have folks, staring at my mug too often, staring at my face the whole time. And so I do try to make it as visual as I can. Or sometimes I'll have a green screen. I'll put up, graphics and visuals behind me. For something like the ninja story, I'd probably use historical wood prints from Japan or something like that to give a feeling of the era.
Are you going to do any ninja moves yourself?
No, not yet. Although I will say when I was a young boy, I don't know what age it was, maybe 9, 10, and my teacher had us all fill out what we wanted to be when we grew up. He'll put, firefighter, astronaut. I wrote down ninja, and I proudly put it to the board, right? And the girl next to me, she put mermaid. And I thought, wow, how dumb is she that she's not picking a real job, unlike me. was making a perfectly real job. Like, I want to be a ninja. So pragmatic.
Well, the most popular thing that kids want to be these days, because you mentioned like firefighters and stuff there, that is like way back. That's like a few generations ago. Kids these days, actually the generation before, so my generation was that everyone wanted to be footballers. Now they want to be famous.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I saw a TikTok from a teacher that they asked their class they wanted to be, and a lot of kids just said billionaires. What an interesting response, right?
Yeah.
What an odd, interesting response. But yeah, I know like influencer content creators have been very high on the list of desired jobs for children for a while. But that's because that's what they're exposed to, right? When I was a kid, I was exposed to media that had a bunch of ninjas in it, right? And so I wanted to be a ninja. Kids now, well, they're watching YouTubers, they're watching people stream Minecraft and their favorite video games. And so like they don't have many examples of things to be when they grow up, but they have a ton of examples of content creators and they see it every day. And so of course that's what they want to be.
And that's, that's basically what you are as well. Would you recommend it as a job to the youngsters?
As a job, no. I think people that are just in this to make money end up burning out or getting disappointed. I always tell people, like, if you have a passion that you want to share with the world, I did this before I was paid for a long time, for a very long time, for years before I was paid, right? And if I stopped getting paid tomorrow, I would keep doing it. I love history and science so much. If the internet went down, I would be sitting around a campfire talking about it. Like, this is just what I'm so passionate about, history and science. And so I think if you have a passion like that, absolutely make content. Don't be afraid. Put yourself out there. If you just want to, escape the 9 to 5 or whatever, trust me, you'll be making a 9 to 9 or a 9 to 12, right? You're making a way harder job for yourself than just a 9 to 5. But if you have a passion, I think 100% share it with the world. I think social media has a ton of downsides. Of course, I will never not say that it's hurt our worlds in many ways. However, just the ability to connect with other people over shared interests is the best it's ever been in human history. And the ability of people that love Star Wars can connect people that love Star Wars. People that are obsessed with collecting mugs and collect mugs. People can argue about the way to make tea and record videos of themselves making tea and get 1 million views. And like I love that about the internet. And I think if folks are passionate, they should absolutely get out there and make content. That's
a balanced view, and it's solid as well, because there does seem to be a bit of a disconnect with I want to be famous, I want to be a billionaire, with the pathway of how to get there. It's just this thing that's going to happen.
If you want to be rich, just go be a lawyer or a doctor. That has been true for 50 years, and it's still the best way. Like, if all you care about is money, go be a lawyer, go be a doctor, go be a banker, right? It will be hard, but at least a pretty guaranteed reward. Whereas you could put in the same amount of work to be a content creator and get $0 10 years later. So
yeah, that definitely happens. Now, I've just this is a bit of a spontaneous one, but earlier on in the show, I was talking about where phrases and metaphors originate from. And I loved it. I just wanted to keep doing like millions of them. I had to call it a day at some point. Where does that one come from? But I did play a game in the middle where I had to see people had to guess where they thought phrases came from. The listeners know the answers to this already, but I thought, why don't I put you on the spot? Because as a know-it-all, maybe you know some of these ones. So I've got the phrase riding shotgun. Like what everyone shouts out when they want to get into the front seat. Where's that come from?
And that one is real. So I do want to add a caveat, which is false etymologies are probably like etymologies and like phrase origins are probably the field of fun facts that are most, for whatever reason, is most like densely populated with not misinformation, apocryphal information, right? Like commonly held to be true, but not true. But this one is not apocryphal. This one is true. And riding shotgun is from carriage days when you would have a guy with a shotgun protecting the carriage next to you. That is totally true. That is a very accurate one.
You're scaring me now, because you do. I mean, I do my research, but I think you go even a next level deeper.
I think that's the problem with they call it apocryphal information, right? So there is misinformation, which is something that's just wrong and intentionally wrong. Mm-hmm. Apocryphal information is genuinely one of my favorite topics, like genuinely, and it basically refers to any information that is not true but is also commonly held, right? Yeah. So stories or facts that are repeated a lot. This is one thing I ran into with the book a lot. I actually hired 2 different fact checkers for this book. And you'd be amazed at like how many levels you had to go to, because someone writes an article and someone else sources that article and someone else sources that third article, etc. But apocryphal information is, Marie Antoinette let them eat cake. That's a perfect example of the apocryphal phrase. She never said that, but everyone believes she said that. apocryphal information. George Washington chopped down the cherry tree and said, I can never tell a lie, which I actually don't know if this audience would know that. That's a very American-centric story.
Never heard that one. The Marie Antoinette one I knew.
There's like an American myth about George Washington, the first president of the United States, it's the stupidest thing. He chopped down a cherry tree when he was a kid, myth, right? And then he goes to his parents and they say, who chopped down the cherry tree? And he said, it was I who chopped down the cherry tree. I cannot tell a lie. Stupidest myth, but like they tell it in every American school as this example of like the first president couldn't tell a lie. Anyways, so sorry, but apocryphal information is genuinely one of my favorite topics for a million reasons, both because it's super interesting why we choose to share stories. Like any fact that spreads for a reason. Any story that spreads for a reason. So like Let Them Eat Cake feels so right and represents so much of what we think about the French Revolution, the monarchy. It's so so we have to spread it because it feels so right. And a lot of these false etymologies, I think, are like that as well, where like it feels like when things are almost a little too perfect. That's like almost all the abbreviations. Any word that used to come from an abbreviation, almost all those are false etymologies. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you gave an example of this, but riding shotgun, not false, very real. People used to carry shotguns in carriages, and that is where that comes from.
Awesome. So you've actually flipped this game on the head. Like I say, all the listeners knew the answers. So instead of necessarily checking whether you know the answers, you could actually just become our fact checker and whether we're all right on this. So
I might not know these. I might not know these either. I'm not an etymologist. Let's do another one.
I've got two more for you. What about getting caught red-handed? So that means that there's no getting away with this lie or saying that you didn't do it. Everyone knows you did it.
I don't know. What's the origin of that one?
So that apparently comes from literally getting caught with blood on your hands. So whether that was for murder or whether it's for poaching, they're looking for a suspect. They've got someone with blood on their hands. It was you. That
sounds totally right. And I actually did a quick Google. That is correct.
And it feels right.
Well, here's the thing. that it feels right. What wouldn't have felt right if you had said, well, in the 1800s, Scottish banks had red paint on their vault doors, and the paint would get wet when thieves broke in, and they would come out with red paint on their hands, and so that's where the phrase "caught red-handed" comes from. That kind of story would make me go, is this apocryphal? It's a little too kitschy. It's a little too perfect. It's a little too quaint. That's the kind of story. But yeah, blood on your hands, caught red-handed, super normal association for humans to make. Makes total sense. That's the etymology.
This makes sense. Do you know, that reminds me of, I don't think any phrases came from this. It was just a fear that I had my whole life as a kid, that if you weed in a swimming pool, it would turn the water, like certain swimming pools had a chemical in it that would turn the water purple around your wee, and it just was horrified. But it was an urban myth.
Totally. Like that's an amazing example of an apocryphal fact, right? Where like it spreads, people feel it's true. Actually, a class on modern folklore, which is one of the best classes I've ever taken, where they examined modern human communication through the ends of folklore, because basically the idea being, we spread things for a reason, right? Stories hold up for 1,000 years or 10 years or 1 year for a reason. And of course, it's like, yeah, you pee in the pool, it turns purple. It's so compelling. It plays these very deep fears we have about the world and accidents and us getting caught red-handed. You know? Let's do the third one. These
everyone getting caught purple bummed.
Yeah, exactly.
That'll be the phrase that's come from that one. And the final one is, if you go the whole 9 yards, you know, you're fully committed, you've given everything that you've got to something. Do you know where that one comes from?
So I think this comes from machine guns and 9 yards of ammunition, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That one also true. Okay, good. Hey, I'm very happy to hear that zero apocryphal etymology is coming from you. That's awesome.
I am so relieved.
No, that's a huge sign you're doing your research correctly. That's awesome, because false etymologies are like the bane of my existence. Anything related to swear words. So I won't repeat them on the show, obviously, but there's a lot of etymologies with swear words and abbreviations. All the, abbreviation swear word etymologies, they're all wrong. Ship high in transit, apocryphal. Those are all wrong. Anyways.
But, interesting.
And the whole 9 yards is amazing. Yeah, because I think World War II machine guns had were bell-fed 9 yards of ammunition, right? Yeah.
That's exactly it. Well, congratulations and thank you. I feel very relieved. Going to have to wrap it up there. I've been speaking to Michael McBride, but he is more commonly known as @IdeasSoup. So you can find him across most of social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. So please do check him out if you've found this interesting, because he's got plenty more to come up throughout the course of the year, I believe. And also check out his book.
This has been so great, Anna. I love our conversations. I love talking to you, and I love your show. And this has been awesome. And I really enjoyed chopping it up. I really did.
Me too. It's been an absolute pleasure. And please check the chat because I've just dropped you a message.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, we're going to wrap that up. That was, like I say, Michael McBride or @IdeasSoup. Go check him out.